been a long 7.5 years, but Sly Cooper is finally back in action with Thieves in Time for the PS3 and the Vita. Now, the original trilogy is a great trio of platformers, with each game providing a cool, unique adventure that are all worth checking out. But after Honor Among Thieves, the series went into a sort of hibernation for a while Sucker Punch went on to create Infamous on PS3. During that time, Sly has only appeared in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale and PlayStation Move Heroes. Now, I've yet to play Sony Smash Bros. So far, and the less said about Move Heroes the better, but hey, Sly's been around. Then in 2010, all 3 Sly games were released in HD in the Sly Collection, which hit a little teaser trailer saying Sly 4 is finally coming. Though it wasn't until E3 2011 when we finally saw Thieves in Time revealed, and the announcement was met with a bunch of skepticism. You know, Sony just has a knack of throwing their franchises to random developers, so now Sly was being handed over to Sanzaro Games, the team behind the collection, and a few other less than stellar games. Yeah, fans were a bit cautious. I mean, really, just look at how Spyro was taken care of after Insomniac Games threw him away. Ugh, get it off the screen, I can't stand to look at it. But Thieves in Time is finally here, no thanks to Sony's complete lack of marketing for it, but honestly, the results are pretty surprising. Thieves in Time is a direct sequel to Honor Among Thieves, so hey, just a spoiler warning for those who aren't in the know. At the end of that game, the Cooper gang is disbanded. Sly is feigning amnesia to finally be with Carmelita. Murray is racing with the team's van, finally giving some continuity to those random driving missions in the first game. And Bentley is off with his now girlfriend Penelope off inventing things, which one invention turned out to be a time machine. Suddenly one day, Bentley notices that the words on the pages of the Thievius Raccoonist just start going missing, so he reforms the gang to recover the book by using his new time machine to find out who's screwing with the past. And with the Cooper gang off time traveling, who's gonna take care of the Thievius Raccoonist in the present? Well, Dimitri, of course! Good! And actually, that's pretty much it for the story. It's quite the simplistic one in comparison to the other games, especially when you have time travel, which is quite the easy go-to story trope. And while I'd normally default to thinking a time travel story was uninspired, when you use it in a Sly Cooper gang as an excuse to interact with Sly's ancestors, it works out perfectly fine. And especially when you throw in Carmelita, who ends up falling for Sly's ancestors more so than Sly himself. Now that's entertainment. So on to the gameplay, and it really couldn't be described any simpler. Thieves in Time is to the original trilogy as the PS3 Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction was to the PS2 games. It feels like the same exact leap, where the core gameplay is pretty much the exact same thing with a few more tweaks to make it its own grand adventure on a more powerful system. Now I can assume that really the only people who are interested in this game are the fans of the series, so you already know how all this goes. But for those that don't, this is an open world mission-based platformer. There are 5 lengthy chapters this time around, with around 10 to 15 missions each, and you can play as a bunch of different characters. You of course have Sly, who is still the most agile of the bunch, and he is still just incredibly fun to use. He also has access to a handful of different costumes that you can use to access new areas on the map to get some sweet treasures. Not some weird costume usage just to get past guards like in Honor Among Thieves, you actually use these costumes to get to new areas. Awesome! Then you have Bentley, who still works at a distance, typically putting his enemies to sleep before blowing them up. Murray, who beats the crap out of his enemies like he don't give a care. And now you can actually play as Carmelita whenever you like, and she controls like a third-person shooter. And of course, there's also plenty times where minigames will take place too, where you do stuff like control RC vehicles or hack computers with now 3 different minigames. This is really fairly standard stuff when it comes to the series. What's really odd though is that one of the hacking minigames is controlled via 6-axis. Really? 6-axis? That PS3 feature where you had to tilt the controller that nobody liked during the early years of the system, and even still makes its grand return here? Awesome? What's really odd about the playable characters too is that you seriously barely ever play as anyone else other than Sly. Games 2 and 3 usually split the gameplay 50% Sly and 50% the rest, but here, you barely ever play as Bentley, you spend even less time playing as Murray, and even less time as Carmelita. It's so weird. I'm pretty sure Carmelita doesn't even have any accessible missions in the overworld, making the option to play as her in them totally pointless. And also, one thing I found out about Carmelita. I read from one of the concept artists that the designers actually tried to, mature her up a bit. I mean, she traded in her pants for her skirt now, and geez, that hourglass figure looks insanely painful. Honestly, I didn't even notice this until I beat the game. But I just wanted to mention it anyway because it's, quite the interesting observation to point out. Sure, let's go with that. But of course, the big change this time around is finally getting to play as Sly's ancestors. Each chapter has their own specific ancestor to play as, and really, from a gameplay standpoint, it doesn't mean a damn thing. They all play almost exactly like Sly with one main move gimmick, and that's really it. It's purely fan service, and there is no issue with that whatsoever. You begin exploring ancient Japan with Ryoichi Cooper, who has the ability to basically warp between spire jump points. Then you go back to the Wild West with Tennessee Kid Cooper, whose cane doubles as a gun, and it's all just cool. I'll leave the last 3 for you to learn about yourself, even though Sanzaru Games has already kinda spoiled all of them. But hey, I'll stick to my word, I won't spoil it. But the only one that's sorta lacking is Chapter 3, kinda as a whole. It's definitely the weakest of all 5 chapters, I feel, and I really didn't dig the Ancestor that much. He kinda felt forced into the game, but it's really far from awful. Besides, I've actually seen a good amount of people who liked that Ancestor, so I might as well keep my voice down so no one gets after me. But really, the main appeal with these guys is just seeing how the Cooper gang forces them into the loop. And they do an okay job of it. They definitely don't pull it Back to the Future with the Great Scott, if you come in contact with your ancestor, you can destroy all life as you know it. It's seriously more like, hey, you're my ancestor, and I'm from the future. Oh, okay, cool. Well, good. Lastly, this game has a bunch of collectibles to get your grubby little paws on. Of course, you can grab a bunch of coins, plenty of which from pickpocketing enemies to access powers back at the hideout, and actually, the different powers actually seem more useful this time around. Shocking, I know. Granted, again, you barely ever play as anyone other than Sly, but hey, his moves aren't that bad this time around, I promise. Then you have the clue bottles from Band of Thieves that are back in the overworlds, which each chapter has 30 of, and finding all 30 gives you access to a safe that gives you a special upgrade, like reduced damage intake, or even sensing where bottles are around you, which is awesome. Then there are special treasures that give you a time limit to bring back to the hideout undamaged. These were in the previous games, but what's awesome here is that each treasure is actually unique, instead of just being a way to get more coins. Just another thing to put a platformer fan's OCD into overdrive. And getting all these gives you access to a special computer hacking level, basically just for high scores. But hey, the hacking games are fun, so good reward. And lastly are all the slime masks that are spread around the entire game, even in missions, and these are actually pretty dang hidden. Finding these rewards you with visual changes like a new paraglider, costumes for each character, and actually pretty sweet changes to Sly's cane. It's kinda weird though that the hardest stuff to find gives you the lamest unlockable, but whatever. Not to mention the quote-unquote bonus for pre-ordering the game was just 3 of the unlockables. Friggin' dumb. So for a platformer, you would normally think I would say something like more collectibles equals better game. But the problem is, there's absolutely nothing in the way of hints for treasures or masks. You can unlock the ability to find out where the bottles are, but all you have to help you with the rest is the chapter select menu saying, yeah, there's still more here. And when the masks can be found in missions and they don't tell you which mission, that's just annoying. I could say it's perfectly fine for the treasures because you find many of which by using the costumes you find in later chapters, but not for the masks. Come on guys, this is 2013, we should be better than this. When the better alternative to exploring is just using an online guide, I would say that's a problem. Oh wait, never mind, silly me. If you have a Vita, you can hold it to your TV screen and spot where the collectibles are. Oh boy! Now you can tell just by watching this, but this game is pretty dang gorgeous. Seeing Sly in HD is just a visual treat, and even though I wouldn't say this was a problem with the previous games, the characters move so fluidly now. They were all pretty stiff before, so it's actually kinda instantly cool seeing these guys move so smoothly. But the worlds are really detailed, the characters have better movement, it's just a beautiful package all around. The voice acting is also top-notch, as any Sly fan would typically expect. Though yes, Carmelita's voice is different once again. And it only took 11 years, 4 games, and 1 company switch, but she finally sounds full-on Latina, as she was originally designed? Whoa, wasn't she supposed to be French? Oh boy, just move on. The soundtrack is, honestly, quite excellent. It is the best soundtrack in the series, by far. The tunes for the different overworlds especially are quite top-notch. And while the story may not be anything special, since it's not really trying to be, I can't complain that much. I didn't really care for the story in Sly 3, but that's because I didn't really like the way they were handling it. This one plays it very light, and I'm totally okay with that. There's even a somewhat cool plot twist that happens in the latter half of the game, which could really throw some lovers of the series for a loop. Overall though, this is a full-on living cartoon. You sorta got that feeling in the previous games, but you make everything more gorgeous now and include a bunch of really awesome looking cartoons that are spread throughout the adventure. This is a playable cartoon, which is awesome. The only critical problem I really have with the game are the loading times. Oh man, they're long. Like PS3 2007 long. Nothing quite like checking your Twitter between segments of gameplay. Bottom line, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time is awesome. It's no huge award-winning system seller, nor is it a groundbreaking evolution in the platforming genre. It's simply fan service for Sly fans, and by that merit, it totally succeeds. This has been getting pretty average reviews by quote-unquote professional reviewers, who probably just can't really understand the concept of a colorful platformer anymore. Although personally, I wouldn't trust many gaming journalists with the flip of a coin. My final verdict is that if you loved Sly before, you will love Sly again. It's actually so close to being the best in the series to me, but I just loved Band of Thieves too much. There is a definite charm that is lost in transition to a new console, but that's sort of expected when you jump to that new ship. But the best thing is, the game is only $40, which is a total steal. Huh, a steal. I wonder if that's a pun. I should also mention that on the day of Thieves in Time's release, Sony announced Bentley's Hack Pack for the PlayStation Network. A little $3 download with a ton of levels for each hacking game. And, that's all I can really say about it, cause that's all it is. But hey, it's a thing, it exists, it's cheap, it's kinda fun. It's kinda stupid that these aren't in the game, or this wasn't the pre-order bonus, but whatever. But that's really it for Sly's grand return to glory, and honestly, I can't really see it going anywhere else from here. I actually kinda feel like this will be the last game in the series, despite what some things may say, which honestly could probably be for the best. If we just continue to ignore that pile of turds that is PlayStation Move Heroes, we can say that Sly Cooper has had a 4-game series with a black sheep nowhere in sight, which is a great accomplishment. Hell, the Ratchet & Jack series can't even say that much. Hey, if Sanzara wants to make a Thieves in Time 2, I will be all for it, but I'm just not holding my breath. I really have no more else to say here about this awesome raccoon, so hopefully by going through all these reviews, you guys are somewhat persuaded to give it a shot. You probably won't regret it. He has had a pretty underrated life, so there's no better time than now to get thieving. So with all that said, hope you guys enjoyed the reviews, and thanks for watching. And let's end off the same way I did with the last two, with the words of a great man. Let's dance!